So what exactly am I doing out here today and this weekend? Well, basically, this is last in a series of videos about the uniform and equipment of the Rhodesian Light Infantry. So as a finale, I'm on a piece of property. It's about 117 acres in West Virginia. It basically constitutes the side of a mountain, and the property owner hasn't been out here in several months because he's busy at his job. So I'm out here just to check the property for signs of poachers or trespassers or anyone driving ATVs on the property, which is very destructive. And I'm also looking for signs of wildlife, just to monitor the wildlife. There are black bears, bobcats, coyotes, tons of white-tailed deer, and there have even been reports of mountain lions on this property. So we're just gonna be doing Rhodesian Light Infantry stuff out here, even though the threat's a lot lower. Just tracking, just looking for signs of any kind of illegal activity on the property. And then one thing we're gonna do that any soldiers in the 20th century could have benefited from is we're gonna emplace a trail camera, which will keep an eye on things for the next month or so until the property owner can get out here. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention the copperheads and timber rattlers. You know that Gadsden flag that has the snake on it that says "Don't tread on me"? Well, that's a timber rattler, and he lives here. I'm gonna spend the night out here tonight. Tomorrow's gonna consist of patrolling. I'll spend one more night and then go home the following day. So I came out here, usually if I come out here, I'll come out here with a truck with bins and bins of gear and make it a very comfortable camping experience. But today I just came out here with the equipment that I went over in my weapons and equipment of the Rhodesian Light Infantry video. So I've just got a backpack and the things I can carry, and the vehicle is out of the road, and I've just hiked in on foot, so no vehicle support, just operating for 3 days with the equipment that the Rhodesian Light Infantry would have had, with the one exception of my trail camera that I'm going to emplace. So I'm setting up my patrol base in a wood line surrounding a landing zone, so that way if I get into trouble I can quickly call for a helicopter extraction. First step in selecting my shelter is just like any camper would do, check the trees for widowmakers. Now, there was a massive rainstorm as I was infiltrating this area of operations, so I'm putting down my poncho as a ground sheet to keep me dry tonight because the ground is very wet. Shout out to Jeff. When I did my equipment video, I wasn't quite sure what the Rhodesians used for rain gear, and he told me that they use a poncho, which of course immediately made sense to me because it's a multi-purpose thing that can be used for anything from a ground sheet, as I'm using it, to protecting you from the rain, of course, its primary purpose. A lot of survival applications. Can make a raft out of it. It was one of my earliest classes I taught when I was in ROTC, was how to make a poncho raft at Recondo School. So when viewer Jeff contacted me letting me know about the poncho, I didn't have a plain Jane olive drab square poncho. I had some fancy ponchos that wouldn't really make good ground sheets, and I had some various United States camouflage patterns, so I wanted to go ahead and get a authentic Rhodesian like poncho, which would have been just a square olive drab one. And I didn't mean to do this because I just ordered it off Amazon, but what I find interesting, since this is May of 2022, is my poncho is actually Ukrainian, so I guess Amazon had already procured it, so I won't have to feel guilty about depriving a Ukrainian soldier of a poncho by buying it, but I thought it was interesting. One thing I'd like to point out is I staked down the corners of the poncho simply because I'd toss and turn in my sleep, and if I didn't stake it down, it would just end up wadded up underneath me in the morning. So I just wanted to point out something I've learned in my decades of existence is that a 45-degree angle is a very magical thing. Most things work better if you do it at a 45-degree angle. So anyway, notice that the string is at a 45-degree angle to the corner of the poncho, and then I've driven the nail in at a 45-degree angle. I'm not going to go into detail about how I constructed my shelter using my German Flecktarn Camouflage Tarp, because there are dozens of YouTube videos showing all types of different techniques for tarp. I'd just like to point out that the nice thing about a tarp, or a basha as the British Army calls it, is you have a lot more situational awareness. So even though a tent to me is a lot more comfortable, a tarp is open to the outside, so I can hear things and just look over if I hear a noise and see what it is without having to unzip the door to a tent and back out awkwardly. So that's why I chose this type of shelter for this operation. So now I'm filming this from the landing zone, and the patrol base that I've set up is very well camouflaged. Can you see it? How about if I move around and get a little closer? Let me know when you can see it. Can you see it yet? There it is. Right now I couldn't ask for better weather. It's about 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 degrees centigrade, just almost like room temperature. Fairly breezy. There's a few insects, but nothing too bad. But in a few hours you're going to get a chance to put the tarp shelter to a test, because the weather forecast is calling for thunderstorms. Well, here it comes, folks, the thunderstorm. Let's see how this tarp shelter holds up. Now the wind's coming in. The rain's coming down in sheets. So far, so good. Dry so far. There's just enough room in here for all my gear. Some 7.62 ammunition. I hope that doesn't cook off when the lightning strikes. And there's my rifle and my rucksack. Come on in, buddy. It's dry in here. Yeah. The weight of all the rain did cause the tarp to sag somewhat, so I reached out and grabbed this handy-dandy stick to serve as a support and kind of keep things where they should be. Knock on wood, it seems like the thunder and lightning have passed, and now we're just going to get a nice gentle rain for the next couple of hours, so hopefully I can stay somewhat dry. Now the sun's out. And look how beautiful the mist is, gently wafting across the landing zone. I love the mountains. They're beautiful. This rain is funny. It falls and then it goes back up into the sky to do it all over again. After doing that whole video on food of the Rhodesian Light Infantry based on what I'd found in the Chris Cox book, this is what I just ended up bringing out. I didn't bring out the cooker. I just didn't want to, for operational security purposes, I just didn't want to do a lot of cooking out here, so I just brought the items that could be eaten without cooking. Now we're going to get into face camouflage. I'm going to get ready to go on patrol, so I want to be camoed up. And it's not just done willy-nilly, there's a method to the madness that I'd like to go over. Basically, the idea of face camouflage is you want to tone down anything that's bright. So anything protruding from your face, like, for example, my nose, I want to camouflage that. The end goal is for your face not to look like a face. My cheekbones are another area that's gonna protrude and have a lot of shine to it. Toning down the cheekbones. ears. If I weren't wearing a hat, I would tone down my forehead, but what I found is that as you move about and start sweating, the camouflage that you put on your forehead ends up in your eyes, which stings and causes temporary blindness. So I just rely on my hat to camouflage my forehead. Outline of the jawbones. I'm kind of using my palm as a palette. And look at the back of my neck, sides of my neck. Just kind of tone everything down a little bit. Make sure I get the back of my ears. Yep, that should pretty much do it. And one more very important thing is I need to get the back of my hands because they're very white and give me away when I'm walking holding my rifle. Okay, let's go for a little walk, shall we? Well, here's the first thing we found on this patrol is this little red newt. He's so cold he can barely move. It's probably in the 50s this morning. They're interesting. Their life cycle is that he's terrestrial only in this phase of his life, and he'll spend the rest of his life in water in a different phase. This is the kind of information that needs to be reported after a reconnaissance patrol. There's a tree that has fallen down in the path of this road. Like I said, this property is about 117 acres and it has over a mile of timber road on it, but a half mile into it, that's as far as anyone could go right now because of this downed tree. Here's a very nice water source. My canteens are full right now, but there's a nice little depression in this stream where I could dip my entire canteen down in it and get relatively fresh water. I'd still use iodine tabs, although I may or may not need to. Better safe than sorry. It's fed by a nice mountain stream. What a beautiful view of the mountains, and you can't see a sign of a human being for miles around, which is just the way I like it. At one point there was a problem here of people trespassing using all-terrain vehicles, which are incredibly destructive to land, especially in the mountains where the land is somewhat fragile. But whoever it is who's doing that seems to have gotten the message from this sign, because there's absolutely no sign of ATV traffic now. These tackies are very lightweight compared to combat boots, but the drawback is when I'm walking through wet grass as I am this morning, this immediately becomes saturated, so my feet are soaking wet. And they're made out of canvas, so they're not going to dry particularly quickly either. So for this operation, I might have been better off wearing combat boots or filtschoons or fellies, because they're leather and they might be able to be waterproofed in a way that canvas can't be. Oh no, it looks like the Joker has been operating here. I might need to use the bat signal to call in reinforcements. And here's a fire ring and a cooking pot, which you can tell by the leaves it hasn't been used since before autumn. Here's a nice feature of this place. There's a mineral spring coming straight out the side of the mountain, There's even a little ladle that could be dipped in the fresh spring for fresh water. Well, we've conducted the entire patrol and we have found no signs of ATVs or trespassers or criminal activity. The last thing I'm going to do is emplace this trail camera. These are really a wonderful invention. When I think about all the soldiers who lost their lives in Vietnam, for example, watching the Ho Chi Minh Trail, for one of a simple device that would keep an eye on the trail for them. Anyway, I'm going to leave this out here for a month and then recover it, and we'll see if anybody has used this logging road. Sadly, the only wildlife I saw on this trip was the eastern red-spotted newt. He was pretty cool. And one white-tailed deer. Maybe next time we'll see some bears and mountain lions. Thanks for joining me in this video series. For our next series, we're going to explore the thing I actually was, a U.S. Army light infantryman from the 1990s. So until then, happy trails.